Hello, welcome to Prerona TV Canada on behalf of Global Academy of Holistic Leadership and Coaching. We are very happy that we are doing our leadership speaker series. Today is our episode 57. And today we're going to discuss leadership failures. One of the earlier sessions last year, we have also discussed leadership failure. But this session will be discussing like why leadership fails, do's and don'ts in leadership, and case discussion. So thank you very much those who are following with us. One of the purpose for this leadership session is to share what are the leadership challenges are there and how we can handle or tackle these leadership issues. In this pandemic, we know we are having a lot of challenges, and we are dedicated or focused to share our experience, expertise. As usual, our actually regular speaker, Advocate Jiaur Rahman, is with us. Let me briefly share about him. He is the Chief Executive Officer of IITM. Is an international training organization, training and research organization, and he is also adjunct faculty of independent university. He taught many other universities. He has a lot of experience in corporate and in academia. So he has conducted a lot of training series. As we know that today is our 57 episode of leadership speaker series, and just share with you about Global Academy of Holistic Leadership, what is all about. Global Academy of Holistic Leadership and Coaching is based in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and we are a registered institute which is actually certified or recognized by the government, and we provide leadership training, research, and we do consultancy. And one of our purposes is to build awareness among everyone about what are the leadership issues and challenges. We have seen that a lot of businesses, small businesses or businesses are having challenges during this pandemic. And due to that, many businesses are shut down or they close their doors. And we have seen that a lot of employees, they have lost their jobs, and it's very unfortunate. A lot of families are having struggles, and we have seen that many also change their careers. So we believe that by providing this leadership series, we can actually equip ourselves with leadership skills, tools, and techniques. And we do have experts which as we can share with his experience about how the leadership can play a role, or if you can build your leadership skill, how it can help you in your career. And even those who are actually successful entrepreneur, because as he's also an entrepreneur, we can also learn that as an entrepreneur, what are the leadership issues or how you can actually follow, which leadership styles you can follow. You can follow different styles, but what the holistic approach of leadership. We have discussed in last many sessions about different aspects of leadership, different styles of leaderships, and what are the international or global aspects or views of leadership. So I know that this will help you to understand and get a perspective how you can use the leadership in your career or in your business. So we are very passionate about it, and we are having very good news. We're having some upcoming conferences, international conference and seminars coming up. So we encourage you to follow our channel, Global Academy of Holistic Leadership and Coaching. We're also attached with some other agencies or some other institutes, collaborations, where we are building or we are helping the leaders or young entrepreneurs. So thank you very much. Those are following with us. We have social media channels like we have official YouTube channels of Global Academy of Holistic Leadership Coaching. We also have a institute called School of Human Excellence, where we also provide some training. So thank you very much for those who are following with us. Advocate Jiaur Rahman is with us. I now welcome Advocate Jiaur Rahman to share or start his presentation, Leadership Failures. thank you very much, Advocate Jia Rahman, for being with us and share your expertise or experience with us. Thank you.
Thank, thank you very much, Edward Probir Mondal. It's good to be here. We have been doing this for a very long time. Today's topic is leadership failures. We had done leadership failures previously, but the way we have played out this series is we are building up on topic one after the other. So in today's topic, we are not only going to just talk about leadership failures, we are going to also bring about some issues, cases, discussions on leaders and how they responded to their particular in their particular domains and how they were successful in spite of having failures, and how we have to consider failure as an option rather than failure as a total negative situation. So moving forward, let me start my presentation. Okay, I believe we can see my presentation now. Let me bring it out bring out the full slides. It takes a little bit of time for some reason. Okay, so leadership failures, and welcome in Canada, and good evening in Canada, and welcome in Dhaka, good morning in Dhaka and rest of the world. Moving forward, I normally start off with a quotation or two. So today's quotation is by Veronica Thrain. She says, sometimes the best way to learn is by making mistakes or even failing. This is an interesting quote in the sense that she emphasized that we need to make mistakes, because she's saying that we learn from mistakes. And why not? Because if you make mistakes, then you learn that this is a particular way on which, if you walk, you will not get to your intended target. That means your door will be closed going through this path. So you have just learned that this is another path that you don't want to tread. So that's why a good leader will take a mistake as an opportunity to learn that this is not the way to move forward, but there are other ways. The other issue, that by going through mistakes, you can fall back and think back of the activities that you had done over the course of the period through which you actually came to this point. Was there a particular point from which you should have actually retracted, or was there a point from which you should have navigated in a slightly different direction? Then you would not have fallen into this point. These are the learnings that would come to you automatically when you are failing. So failing smart and failing quick, this is also a notion, is also an appropriate way of realizing that in order to achieve something, you need to move quickly through failures and then achieve those targets that you are having in front of you. Moving forward, this is by J.K. Rowling, the famous writer. She says, failure is so important. It is the ability to resist failure or use failure that often leads to greater success. She is emphasizing on two parts: the ability to resist failure or use failure. In both cases, ability to resist failure. Obviously, if you can move through your target, move through your activities without failing, then you are having a lucky journey, so to speak, but you are achieving your target. That's good, fine. There's nothing wrong in achieving target without having to go through obstacles. If you consider obstacles as a component of failure, then you didn't come across many obstacles. You overcame any of the obstacles and you achieved your success. So that's something remarkable for you to succeed. That's success, fine. That doesn't happen all the time because life is not all bed of roses. You know that in your journey, there will be many instances where you had never had any plan to address those instances, and they popped out of nowhere, and you have to immediately handle and address those issues and move on. That's your leadership journey. That's how you get a mental strength to succeed in life. If the other point she's talking about, or use failure that often leads to greater success, the ability to use failure. Why is she saying this? Is because once you fail, if you know how to respond to the failed instance, how to respond to the state of mind when you are in a failed condition, how do you respond to your leadership team, what do you do, these issues, what are the immediate steps, how will your body language be when you are seeing failure right in your face. These are the issues that if you can navigate professionally and with composure and with confidence, then you are truly going to be leading your organization. People will feel confident around you because we know that success everybody loves, but when there is a set of failure and even catastrophic failure in around your product or your service, how do people respond? Is there a lot of frustration that brews? Is there a lot of finger pointing at each other? What is the situation that arises? People who operate nicely under ambient condition will automatically produce good results. That we know for sure. That is rational thinking globally. But what does people feel, and how do they operate in a frustrating environment where things are not going right? Things have gone haywire. People are not absolutely certain as to which direction to move from the present negative consequences. That's when your overall characters are noticed. That's when the heat is felt by you and your team. And how do you handle the heat? Do you start lashing at people? Do you start throwing your tantrums? Do you start blame gaming? Do you shut yourself down? Do you slide under the table, meaning in terms of your activities? What do you do? Those issues are so vital in order to move beyond the situation of failure. So J.K. Rowling is talking about two components. One is complete success without failure, and you move towards your intended target, and you achieve grand success. That's one way of achieving success. But little that we know in our lives that these successes are hard to come by. Maybe 5% of your time. I should not put a percentage, but practically speaking, 5 or 10% of all successes have come fairly easy. But in reality, 90% or 80% of all your successes have come through a lot of sweat, a lot of grit, a lot of dedication, a lot of effort. So as a leader, your role is to ensure that how you navigate on those territories where the environment is not conducive, the people around you are not really operating in the best and most optimum level, and the climate, the business climate, the business ecology, and overall market conditions are not very suited. And how do you move around? What steps you take? What types of communication strategies that you build upon? And what types of confidence building activities that you set out doing to achieve your success? That's so much more important. And in this process, how do you respond to failure? You will fall into the gut, you will fall into the pit, but how quickly you come out, what systems of operative mechanisms do you have within yourselves, within your team, and how you have designed your ecosystem? How do you respond to the issues of failure? What is the culture with regards to failure within your organization? Those are important issues. As we move towards the middle of the presentation, we will go into detail. So without further ado, let me move into the next quotation. This is by John Wooden. He says, failure isn't fatal, but failure to change might be. Extremely powerful a statement. Failure to change might be fatal. That's the whole point. When you are in the midst of a negative and not proper environment, your climate is completely non-conducive for you to operate, you may fail. But if you don't realize that next time around, you will not go through the same process, you will not follow the same system, the methodology, you will have to evolve, you have to tinker with it, and you have to build other strategies around your workflow, the set of activities that you are doing. If you don't do that, you will again come to the same condition and you will fail. So if you fail repeatedly coming to the same condition, that means that you are not nurturing and you're not being intelligent enough to address and accommodate all the attributes, all the systems of mechanism that is around you that should have been taken into consideration, and a new system, a new way to approach to this point should have been redesigned. But you didn't do that. Obviously, you will fail. So the whole point of John Wooden's statement is, unless you know how to fix from a negative situation, from a situation where you are certain to fail, and if you don't learn from it, that means you will ultimately fail miserably. And once you fail miserably, that means you are approaching a fatal state of affair from which you may not be able to stand up with your backbone straight up as a business house or as an organization or even as a politician. If you make tremendous mistakes and you had opportunity to fix yourself, but you never did, then one fine day you will not be able to stand up straight, and that will be the end of your career, political career, business career, or your social entrepreneurship career. Even from a context of entrepreneurs, specifically, we have to be very careful as an entrepreneur because resource constraints are very important issue, and especially in the pandemic, post-pandemic world, resources are going to be even less available to you. So whatever plans that you do, you must be almost be foolproof. It is not suggesting that you will make plans which will not have elements of failure, points where you will fail. You will not be able to do that, because understanding the future and accepting that future that is coming in your direction may have a different course. That is a reality. You have to accept that. But how quickly you change your direction, or you change your circumstances, alter your perspective, and stay with the flow of the market, that's most important. So you don't want to fatally fail by not changing yourself on a regular basis. The people who change themselves quite often, in the sense they improve upon their knowledge, they improve upon their skills, those are the people who actually builds on the strength of the organization and moves from strength to strength. So as a leader, our focus would be to learn from every single mistake and learn how to navigate out of it. And you should not be falling in the same pit over and over again. So moving forward, this is a quotation that I write on my own. So what is leadership in the context of today's session? Leadership failure. Leadership is the ability to build your way forward, rising from the ashes of failure. Rising from the ashes of failure. That means no matter how hard you are hit, no matter where you fall for your mistakes that you had done previously, there is always an opportunity to rebound. There is always an opportunity to strengthen yourself with a positive resolve that whatever had happened previously, I have learned from my mistakes, and I am following a different route, and I know how to navigate around the obstacle that almost destroyed my opportunity set. So you will be more confident as to walk through a particular path and then move about in a different directions, because you know that previously, if you had followed a particular direction or a particular methodology, you are going to be coming to a failed state of affairs. So you don't take that path, you move about, you create some opportunities which are maybe connected areas, but not exactly the same approach. And that's how you are intelligently using your wit, you're intelligently using your business ecosystem or social or political ecosystem, if you're a social entrepreneur or a political entrepreneur, and then you move about. So when we talk about leadership, in our series, we're not just talking about business leaders per se. We are also talking about social leaders, a political leader, a leader who is actually transforming the mindset of his or her people. So in every capacity, a leader has to grow, and failures will be left and right. We have to be able to bounce back and address and learn from each of the failure. And that's why we are saying that rising from the ashes, because when you're comparing ashes, that means you have burnt yourself to the ground. You're almost a non-entity at this point, but still you rise like a phoenix through your resolve, through your dedication, through your life's experience and the activities sets that you design around you, so that you can become foolproof again and move about and create the opportunity, create the enterprise that you always wanted to build. It is through your, as a leader, complete mental makeup and mental strength that you will drive forward. And once you do that, people will come next to you thinking that this person is on a positive journey. Everybody in this world wants to associate with positive minded people. So your journey, if it's positive, if your journey that you have come to this point and you have taken a resolve to be successful and be connected to the vision for the organization that you have set out, maybe you have slipped miles. Maybe you feel that you're nowhere close to the vision that you had planned that you would be having by the end of, let's say, 2021, but you're way off. Don't let that feeling overtake you. When, as a leader, if you let negative emotions take the grip of you, take control of you, then you are in trouble. What you need to do as a leader is you have to think and bounce back on a daily basis, that what is it that I need to do today to feel better and be on my path to the journey that I or my team has set up. So if you are constantly talking to you, it is your interpersonal communication that we had talked about, that if you are confident and talking to your own self and aligning your mindset to be positive and proactive and reconnecting with the visions that you had set up for your organization, or the organization has set out for you and your team. If you reconnect with that vision, talk to yourself at an interpersonal level, internal communication level, then obviously you will be able to move out of any disharmonious, disingenuous, and disgruntling environment that is setting yourself for failure. Those days will be over. You will find tools and wherewithal to move about with. So these are mental ecosystems, mental state of affair that you as a leader, you can come to grips with. You can design your future by pushing yourself to that limit. And if you constantly practice that, you are doing better today and you're learning from your mistake, from your past, then you will be that confident person, and that confidence will radiate, that confidence will illuminate others, and others will also join in this journey of success along you. But always remember, in the journey of success, there will be moments of deep desperation and darkness. Don't be phased away. Don't feel that this is the end of the life. Many people in this life feel despair gripping them, and they feel that there is no light at the end of the tunnel. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. We just don't see it for the time being. So you have to weather that storm and move about. So leadership is this capacity to find your way out of the ashes and build back the momentum that is needed to move about. And also we have to realize empathetically, and having a empathetic mind, that everyone around me are human beings. No one is a machine. You cannot expect people to perform at the same level all the time, every day. There will be moments of despair, moments of frustration. Many of these problems that we see in the life of a leader, it's not directly because of him or her. Sometimes some major circumstances around that person has altered, circumstances have altered, and that is having a very significant effect on that person. So you have to weigh in those attributes and weigh in those conditions and predicaments, and then navigate yourself out of those what should I say, out of those pits of frustration, and move about. So moving forward is the most important part, even if you have fallen into a gutter. So next slide. We had talked about failure issues in some ways from the symbolic point of view. Now we are going into details of why we fail as leaders. We had talked about some of these in our previous sessions. These are something additional. So why we fail? We fail because we are shifty in our mindset. We are shifting our focus. You come across certain obstacle, you all of a sudden think that perhaps this is not the way to go about. You don't pursue further in that direction. But the reality was like this, that if you had pursued a little bit harder in the same direction, then you would have achieved success. But you actually got phased out, you actually got frustrated, or you felt that, no, this is not the right way. Then you start finding another approach, and you move about in circles doing this. And ultimately, you have a big result, which amounts to zero. So as a leader, you have just invested a lot of time or wasted a lot of time, but you have not come about with any output or any particular direction to achieve your target. So that is going to be a little disturbing. Don't feel that there will not be moments ever in your life that you will be in this type of environment. You will be in this type of environment. But what is important is to learn how to handle those environments, and what is the right course of journey that you must take in an appropriate timeline is what you should be focusing on. So if you're falling into these type of situations on a regular basis, then you have to also address your own learning curve. Am I learning something out of it? Is it becoming a systematic issue of me failing, or once I arrive at these type of situations? So what do I need to do? What do I need to alter in my own capacity, in my own knowledge base, skills area, my communication, etc.? So you have to focus on those issues, but you cannot lose sight on a particular direction. So you have to push yourself to a certain level where you know that you have done a lot, and maybe this is not the right way. This is the judgment call that a great leader automatically somehow learns over the years. This is perhaps through experience, and perhaps through high intellectual capacity, that when enough is enough, where do you draw the judgment call that enough is enough? We don't want to pursue in this direction. Otherwise, people would be investing money in projects and expecting that the project will be successful. But in reality, the entire premise on which the project had started is not appropriate. It was never grounded on a successful planning. So obviously the outcome will be also unsuccessful. So you have to realize when to move your focus away from those type of projects, that's for sure. But that is not an issue that you should be worrying about on a daily basis. You have to fail projects, because through failure, you will know how other projects are to be designed, or future projects are to be designed, and what elements you have to avoid in order not to fail. So next one is poor communication. We know that for a fact that every organization, every environment, even within your family discussions, if you don't have proper communication set up amongst your members, amongst your team, things will go haywire. Things will go out of your capacity. Ultimately, it will be out of your capacity to mend back the fences. It will be very difficult, because it has gone beyond your capacity to actually repair the failure points, because the communication had gone wrong right from the beginning, and you did not pay attention, and then you picked up certain things when it was almost about to be launched. Then you realize that this attribute is something which was identified as something which will cause a certain particular problem, but some of the members of the team were not properly conveyed, and they have built this issue into the instrumentation or the control system of this particular project or particular product. There will be a very severe negative consequences. So you have invested a lot of time, energy, and millions of dollars, so to speak, and now you have to retract. You have to do a recall of the entire process, and maybe start from the scratch, or come back a number of steps and then redo the product. So that's a very hefty cost that you will incur. And why did that happen? Because of not properly communicating with your team. So communication is not only fatal, it is very costly as well, and it can totally change the mood of the environment. It can totally destroy the wonderful work ambience, and the energy and the spirit can be marginalized. It can be all of a sudden shut to the ground. Next one is risk aversion. If you're always thinking that I need to avoid risk, I can't do this because it might cause some kind of failure moments or failure points. Let's not do this. So what will happen is you will never be able to explore the opportunity that are out there. You will not be in an innovative mode. You will not be challenging the norm. You will be always focused on building your enterprise right around status quo situation. Let's say you have a particular product, you will just tinker with some incremental changes to the product or the service. You will not be thinking in a bold, out of the box thinking capacity. Why? Because you're risk averse. So leaders should not be risk averse. You have to blend a certain level of risk with your activities. If you take those risks, then you will probably shine further. You might come across something remarkable, and that will be miles ahead of what your old status quo planning would have delivered. Next is ethical slip. It goes without saying, if you're non-ethical, if you don't follow what is morally right, ethically fair, judgmentally sound, if you are not in any of those capacities, what is happening is you're tinkering with an organization which is simmering, which is having the steam brew into the organization, and one fine day it will explode or it will implode. You might have tremendous frustrations within your own enterprise, people having difficulty seeing others eye to eye, because there are many levels of ethical slips and nobody is truly believing in the other person because of the trust factor, because of the self-respect factor has been shot very hard. So those issues must not be there. And when you are in a imploding kind of situation where you're exploding internally, automatically it will show up in your external communication and your external branding. Your activities, your products will fall in a negative territory in terms of its quality. Your service levels will go down. Overall, everything will be affected. So the ethical slip would be the cornerstone of negative vibes that will ultimately destroy your total enterprise. A reasonably good enterprise can falter and miserably fail when the leadership goes into an ethically wrong journey. And you know that for a fact. You have experiences that some managers came into your operation and got into some really negative affairs, being corrupt, jeopardizing the system, patronizing certain people. Those are also areas of ethical slip. Being very judgmental and not being fair, being very callous in their behavior, not putting the right time commensurate with their job responsibility. Those are also ethical slip. So you have to be bundling all of those issues as a set of consequences that can destroy the organization. And you will see many examples in this world where organizations have ultimately failed because of one or two people at the helm. So we must emphasize, I am emphasizing, that whatever you do, start looking at the ethical journey of your organization. It's not just the ethical journey within your enterprise, also the journey of your overall communication to your clients, your stakeholders. You must be fair in setting the trend of speaking what is fair and what is right and what is appropriate. You can't oversell a product without having the right intended qualities in that product. That would be totally unethical. So these issues have to be concerned seriously. And if you don't, then your leadership will fail. Point number 5, poor self-management. Every organization is run by the ecosystem of the people whose combined efforts are summed, and the opportunity for the organization, the grand total aggregate effort. And if it's streamlined, if it's strategically working, and if it's following a particular pattern, then you have a tremendous output. But if you are faltering in your own domain of set of activities, you were given 6 assignments to be done this month, and you only do 2, thinking that the top management is not going to worry about, because maybe the next month is going to be extremely busy a month in terms of your production planning or something, that maybe your part of the activity will actually come about the following month, where the management will actually have a review of your activities. So that something that you could have done in a 30-day period, you stretch out to a 60-day period. That is a failure in management. The other issues of failure in management is not following the structure that has been laid out in front of you as an organization, and not following the hierarchical process of your management structure, where you are to report with certain issues with your team members. You have to do certain report writing. You have to have certain level of meetings and communications and etc. If you're not following through all of that, or if your company has assigned a certain training for you, and if you are having a lackluster performance on that training because of your personal time engagement elsewhere, or you just don't care too much, those are areas where you will ultimately fail. Because if your failure and multiply that with the failure of others, will have a cascading effect. And even if you don't see failure in the areas of other people, your failure will slow down the process that you were doing in this distribution of work activity. For example, you had to do a particular task, and maybe the next person would be building upon the next level based on what you transfer to that department. But you're being very lackadaisical, you're being very lazy, then obviously your part of the work will be transferred much later than intended, or much later than what should have been the right appropriate timeline. You are losing energy, you're losing effort, and you're losing time for the entire enterprise. And imagine in a supply chain where about 10 people are to be involved in the final output of the product that will be going out in the market. If you 3 people are being very lazy, then the initial planning to market, if it takes 2 months, it will take 3 months because of you 3 people who are not doing your part of the work. So poor self-management will ultimately not only fail you because your own key performances will be affected, it will fail the organization. So every human resource manager, you need to look at your own personal dynamics. Every leader, you need to look at your own personal dynamics. You try to put together a set of activities that you should be doing on a regular basis. Once you put those standards up, and if you maintain those standards, then you are at least knowing that these are the minimum common denominator features that I need to operate in order to be successful. These are more line managers with specific targets and specific skills that they are to deploy in their work activity. But when you're dealing with top management, the self-management issues are even more complex because you're dealing with a lot of nebulous issues. You're dealing with the challenge of rekindling the entire enterprise because the products and services have to be altered. You might be in a situation where you might be addressing issues of total failure because the product that you had been working with is no longer to be a acceptable product in the market in the coming 2 or 3 years. What do you do? So as a manager, if you're not dealing with new product lines, new strategy, new approaches to redesigning your entire organization, then you are actually failing to grow the organization. And that would turn out to be as poor self-management. You might be focused on nitty-gritty affairs and you might think that I am really good at what I'm doing, but you're not, as a senior level manager, you're not paying attention to the transformation of the enterprise that needs to be undertaken. That would be a fatal mistake. So that would be poor management, poor self-management as well. So you don't want to be in those type of shoes. Okay. Lost love is in respect to love for your work, love for the team with which you're working, love for the product line or the services that you're coming out. So if you lose a passion with whom you're making your home, your family, if you lose a passion with that person, obviously that will show in your behavior, it will show in your affection, it will show your activities. Same thing will happen when you are not passionate with the work that you're doing. All of a sudden you lose passion in the activity that you are doing for the last 5-10 years. That would be a major issue of concern. So you have to recalibrate yourself, either prepare yourself and re-energize yourself to be in the same industry, or maybe this is a time for you to move out of the industry and embrace something different. So those issues are so vital. And in addition to what we had discussed previously, I have actually brought these out for you. So as a leader, if you start thinking and start thinking of these 6 components as your areas of moments of failure, then if you can address those issues at an appropriate level and push with certain incentive and motivation and self discovery. You do a self journey of who you truly are as a leader and try to build upon your strength and focus on your challenges and the opportunities that are out there. If you can grip them quickly, then you can navigate out of these 6 boxes of negative perspective that can actually pull you down to fail. Moving forward, do's and don'ts in leadership. Obviously, do's, you have to think very logically, rationally, and that will give you the right output. You must be able to control your emotional mindset. So if you're in a tantrum, if you're throwing tantrums in a heavy flux environment where things are not going right, then you are not truly leading. You are adding to more stress. I've noticed that on different occasions that I've gone to different offices in Dhaka or elsewhere, where I've seen that some project had gone bad and the boss is really rebuking everyone and everyone is actually being quiet and trying to follow instructions. Sometimes it may work, but most oftentimes, if the boss is on a rebuking mode every time things go not as expected, then you are not in the right environment. You will not grow as a professional. The boss is actually hurting himself, herself as a leader, in the sense that he or she is not showing the right attitude, right behavioral mindset with his or her team members. So you need to control those emotional condition at moments where you are in grave difficulty. You have to internalize your emotion and explore through discussion what needs to be done. Built on facts and knowledge. Every leader needs to move with facts and knowledge. Impromptu, abrupt decisions may not be very good. Sometimes you have to make quick decisions, maybe gutsy decisions as a leader. That goes without saying, but will you do that 60% of your time? Will you do that 70% of your time? Probably not. Maybe 10, 20% of your time, you might have to take immediate action, which is not by the book. There is no standard operating procedure for certain issues that pops up, and you have to be brave and quick and immediately take action for those kind of conditions. And that's also how you learn to handle very difficult conditions and navigate out of those difficulties. Assumptions we have to have, but if you're taking everything based on assumptions on previous and past history, that previously this had happened, oh, therefore, if the same condition has happened, therefore it is bound to follow the same route that we had experienced previously. Not true, because previously the set of external circumstances were very different from the set of external circumstances or internal circumstances that are around the situation, and it is rather different. Obviously, your assumptions of the past will not play out appropriately in a condition that where your set of circumstances have been tremendously altered. You have to come up with a different you have to come up with a different point, a different perspective and different decision you have to take, and based on your facts and knowledge with all the additional consequences, additional elements and rich fabric of consequences that are around you at this point. So you have to take them into consideration and make those decisions at that point. Just arbitrary making decisions based on previous assumptions, previous consequences would not be the right approach. So if you do that, then you are in definitely a slippery slope of failure. Maintain actions in line with strategy. We know that organizations have a set of strategy. They have a strategy map, a strategy plan. We had talked about strategic planning previously, that leaders have to be spending a lot of time engaging with the strategy planning and strategy mapping. So you have to be careful as to ensure how far away you're navigating out of your common territorial structure where you're close close to your strategy documentation. If you're way too out, then maybe either your strategy mapping exercise or your strategy planning exercise was not appropriate, or you're in dangerous shores where you might be eaten up by a, let's say, a shark, because the situations might be so disruptive, so disoriented, where you will never be able to navigate out of those heavy streams. You will go under. So abrupt changes are not good unless it's absolutely necessary. So as I mentioned, status quo and change, these are the two dynamic that a leader has to balance on a daily basis. You have to be very worried about changes. If you are doing it so very often, then there is something wrong in your strategy planning. So you need to spend time with your top management in trying to recalibrate and reorient your markets planning with regards to the change consequences and market changes. That's very important. So avoid abrupt changes, but abrupt changes are needed at times as well. Constantly assess situations and transform. This is in regards to the previous one. You have to develop your strategy sometimes on a regular basis in a market which is tremendously moving fast, specifically if you're in the digital market, in the IT market, in a high products with high technological challenges. You have to be constantly looking out for those new issues that are coming out into the market. Do you have those issues? Do you have those elements that needs to be incorporated in your product or service? Are you in line with the market, or are you moving beyond the market? So are you transforming yourself in terms of your product and services? Those are very important ecosystem decisions that you have to take. But you have to be also very careful as to be in line with the market as well. If you're too far out, the market will lose you as well. Even companies like Apple, if they take a lot of major strides, they're too far out in line with the audience, then the audience connect is loosened. They don't sort of relate very quickly. So it is a very important judgment call as to how far out you want to keep your product, and then what level of education that you will be throwing at your audience, so that the audience or your market takes this as a wonderfully new innovative product and connects to it. If the market is confused as to what this product is going to do, then you are in a severe negative consequences. Your sales will be affected, etc. Overall situation with the organization will be affected. So one thing is important. You don't want to be in a status quo situation all the time. That will not grow your organization. That will not bring in your 10-20% growth that is needed to overcome the inflation rate. But you might be growing at a very marginal level, but ultimately your competitors will overtake you in terms of their revenue, markets, territories, etc., because you had been very, very risk averse and status quo oriented leader or a manager. You will not sustain. You will have to be really reformulating your strategy in order to survive. So these are the do's and don'ts for a strategic manager or a leader. Moving forward, this is some discussions that we are starting from today's session, and in perhaps in previous future sessions, we will bring in some case-based discussions. This is from a Harvard business case, and this case is talking about IBM's Thomas Watson. He was the CEO, and what he used to suggest is that you need to double your failure rate. This sounds funny, right? You are telling your executives, please double your failure rates. Why? Because imagine you fail with a product in 1 year period. You have planned that you will organize this product, and then you will move into another product. And so you have 1 year and the next year. But if you can fail within 1 year, both products, you at least know that these two products are not going to be my focus area for the next year. But if you fail on one product and then you waste another year and you fail on another product, 2 years from the ecosystem, business ecosystem, from your business life is already squandered. You have lost 2 years. Imagine a 2 year period in which what your competitor can do if they are in the right course of journey. They will crush you with their innovative products. So the idea that Thomas Watson is to speak to his team at IBM is that you strengthen your resolve. You will fail. We will not punish your failure. It is a prerequisite to invention, and you fail quick. If you fail faster, then you have an opportunity to bounce back and move into something which is remarkable as a product. At least you know that these products are not the right products that we need to pursue. So product planning is connected with product failure, and Thomas Watson is focusing on failing quick, failing fast, and the rate must be doubled so that you quickly fail, you move into certain potential product that way. Otherwise, you will be stuck in the gut and you will be stuck in the mud thinking of your product as something remarkable, and you will push forward and make more investment, spend more R&D, and ultimately the same failure will come about the next year. So that's very important, a case discussion by IBM. And this is how IBM actually started to evolve as a very efficient, nimble organization. Previously, it was considered an organization which was very heavy on the management side, and they had many levels of managerial decisions before a decision were to be taken. And after Thomas Watson Sr. and others came in, the process was significantly squeezed, and therefore the organization started to do well. The next case discussion is on Capital One. This is also from the same Harvard Business Review article. Capital One is a financial company in the United States. What it says is Capital One is continually conducting large number of market expectation, knowing that most of their tests won't pay off. They know that most of their experiments will fail. So you might say that why are they doing these experiments in that case? Why are they wasting their resources? Why are they deploying their people? They are not wasting their resources. They are finding out different avenues that will either work or that won't work, that they will not be spending more time. Through this, they know that in order to double and come out of the market from a, let's say, a status quo type of product, they have to navigate through these ways, because the other ways in which they had invested time and money, they were not the right set of ways to move about. So they know that in their growth as an organization, these journey paths are not good. So that's why they would be spending money in identifying where to stop their focus and where to engage and push their focus forward. That is why they have these experiments, and that is why they spend money and cleverly, quickly understand which will work and which will not work. They're always tinkering with opportunities, tinkering with project ideas and service ideas. So while they're doing, they feel at Capital One that failures will provide them valuable insight into customer preferences. While they do that, others are launching 2 or more projects with the same goal, sending teams in different directions simultaneously. We're talking about another set of company, which they are also doing in the right zest. They're sending teams in special journeys, in special projects, on 2 or more projects, and they are calling it simultaneous management by this professor of civil engineering, Professor Alexander Lauer. And what this person is saying, that this
creates a potential for healthy cross-fertilization of new ideas and techniques. So we know from this case that capital one is focusing on going in the journey of finding out which won't pay off, which approaches won't pay off, and they are spending time and through which they know that most of their experiments will not pay off. That means they will fail, but they will learn many ways of not doing these things in the ways through which they fail. So they will have more enlightened knowledge as to which way to move forward as an organization. That is one component. And the other one is suggested by Alexander Lohr, where they're talking about simultaneous management. You are going out with 2 or 3 projects at the same time. Why? This will allow a cross-fertilization of new ideas and techniques. And through this technique and this idea, you are actually engaging the spirit of your innovation team, and they are more hyped, they are more energized, and they feel that they are into something remarkable, a journey. So these issues are so vital as a leader to realize and contextualize in the businesses, in the activities in which you are involved in. So the whole process of the case discussion model that we have starting from today is to give you certain understanding of what others are doing and how things are either working appropriately or not working appropriately. These functional discourse, these functional mindsets that they have is going to help you to redesign your own set of circumstances. But please note that you can't just completely take everything word for word from the case and apply it in your own capacity. Note that every single enterprise is different, and set of circumstances encapsulating those organizations are different, but you can harbor certain level of understanding and gather certain understanding and knowledge, and also find specific leadership angle to navigate and use it in your own enterprises. So with that, I would be actually coming to my end of the presentation, where I have a case. I have a $1 million question, and today's $1 million question: is there a balance between failed efforts and a successful efforts for a leader? It is very hard to actually ascertain. You can't tell that you have to spend 50% of your time on success, ensuring that efforts are ultimately rolled out effectively, and you put yourself out of certain activities and fail 50% of the time. You can't put everything in those type of context, and you can't put into these baskets. But what I would say is it all depends on the industry. If an industry is constantly in a flux, moving and creating new products and services on a regular basis, I would say you would be focusing more on also experimentation, taking risk, and being risk averse would be not the intended way to move about in these type of high flux environment where things are moving almost on a constant basis. Industries which are coming up absolutely new, which were not even there 10 years back. Those are the industries where you have to spend a lot of effort in also failing, because you will not know which ways to go about, because this is an barren industry. This is a virgin sector, and it is you who would be painting the grand strokes of a wonderful architect, wonderful painter. And if you don't know where to throw these, draw these strokes, you will not have a wonderful painting that will come about. You will have a very average painting, because you're too fixated on following a particular norm that you probably brought from your previous organization. So as a manager, as a leader, at times you have to throw your old vision. You have to make the vision marry with innovation and risk and build something forward. And that is how you ultimately create a successful enterprise. So taking risk is also part of the game or name of the game, given the context of the organization. So the business ecosystem or the social entrepreneurship condition or the political realm in which you are involved in as a leader, you have to get all the understanding, all the climactic conditions. You have to have a very good feel for it, and then you could navigate out of that storm and take your ship to safer shores. So with that, I would like to end today's session, and thank you very much. I am Professor Advocate Ziaur Rahman from Bangladesh. I'm the CEO of IITM and adjunct faculty with Independent University, and also connected with global thought leadership enterprise that Edward Probemondo is running in Canada. Thank you very much. Back to you, Edward.
All right, thank you very much, Advocate Ziaur Rahman, for your excellent presentations and sharing important thoughts and examples of leadership failure. It was a very informative, very elaborate. You elaborately discussed the topic, and really grateful to you for your contribution. With that, we conclude our 57th episode to Leadership Speaker Series. We invite you to watch our next session, which will be held at the same time. The Leadership Speaker Series is held every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, Edmonton, Calgary, and Eastern Standard Time, Toronto, Ottawa at 11 p.m. And on Thursday morning at Bangladesh Standard Time at 9 a.m. and Indian Standard Time Thursday morning at 8:30 a.m. With that, I thank you everyone, and stay safe and stay blessed.
Thank you.